Hello, I'm Adrian and welcome to Top 10. This time we're going to be taking a look at 10 games that I initially missed, or you may have missed, on their launch window and didn't play until the past 2 years. If they're multi-platform, I'm including the version that I played. They may not all be considered critical masterpieces, but they are extremely entertaining in my book. Without further ado, let's begin.
Number 10.
Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie, and I think this PS2 game is actually a solid action-adventure title that adapts the movie fairly accurately. The lightsaber combat is surprisingly deep, with tons of combos and parries at your disposal, and each character you control does feel different from one another. The campaign is well designed, and doesn't overstay its welcome either. I will warn you that in case you want to play it, there are some random difficulty spikes, but most of the game is quite fun. There's tons of bonus content as well, that lets you control fan favorites from the saga, such as Darth Vader, Yoda, and everyone's favorite droid with bronchitis, General Grievous.
Number 9.
Dead to Rights Reckoning. I've always been a fan of the Dead to Rights series, having enjoyed the first game quite a bit when it released, and I've already included Dead to Rights Retribution as my number 1 pick in my top 5 great games that nobody played. I never got around to playing Dead to Rights Reckoning for the PSP because I remember video game sites completely trashing it in their reviews. Having played it this year, I'm happy to say they were really off the mark. It's a balls-to-the-wall arcade action experience where you're constantly diving in slow motion like it's 1999. It may be on the short side, but it's extremely fun to play as it's got a simple shooting mechanic that it exploits to its maximum potential, giving you a great excuse to turn off your brain and enjoy being an action hero with a missile for a canine.
Number 8.
Pokemon Fire Red version. Pokemon Red and Blue on the Game Boy were fantastic games, but I never got around to playing its remake, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green for the Game Boy Advance, so recently I gave it a shot and it was like riding a bike. Practically all of the mechanics are left intact, but it received a definite graphical upgrade and a couple of other useful tweaks to streamline the experience. It was fantastic to remember all those Pokemon names that I had forgotten. This obviously doesn't include Charizard though, because that guy is unforgettable. And man, does the trading card community know it.
Number 7.
Watchmen: The End is Nigh. This game launched when the whole concept of DLC was still in its infancy. It later released as a package deal for the PS3 that included the Zack Snyder movie. I got it on Steam this year and it's basically a beat 'em up game in the likes of Maximum Carnage and the Bouncer. It has a dedicated combo system that includes brutal finishing moves, throws, and plenty of other crunchy melee attacks. Best of all, it features a split screen multiplayer mode, so you can play with a friend, or in my case, my brother. We both had a blast bashing enemies into the pavement and breaking so many bones that would make even Jackie Chan wince.
Number 6.
Ratchet and Clank. I completely missed playing the entire Ratchet and Clank series when it was in its heyday, but decided to give the PS2 original a try. I enjoyed the game and later saw the movie. Then I decided to play the PS4 game that was based on the movie that was based on the PS2 game. It was actually really well made and a supremely polished platformer. While it may not have been as challenging as the original, I had a lot more fun with the remake. It made several references to the PS2 game, but had considerably updated its mechanics to make it a smoother gaming experience.
Number 5.
Dissidia Duodecim Final Fantasy. Once you get past the convoluted title of this PSP game, as well as a pretty steep learning curve to master the fighting mechanics, you'll find yourself with a fast-paced and fun brawler. You have an arsenal of popular Final Fantasy characters to choose from, including Lightning and Tifa, and they each have their own unique attacks that you can assign to each attack input. When you go through the campaign, you play as each one of the main characters of Duodecim, or you can go straight to the arcade or versus mode against the computer. You can eventually unlock the entire first Dissidia, and it even has a third unlockable chapter. In other words, if you're looking for a lengthy fighting game on the PSP, look no further.
Number 4.
Volume! If you've seen my channel before, you know that I inevitably gravitate towards stealth-driven games like the Metal Gear and Splinter Cell series, so I was always curious about this stealth title. I finally got around to playing it last year once I found out it was available on the PS Vita, and was really happy I did. The levels are all broken down into bite-sized stealth experiences that encourage you to use the game's unique mechanics to get to the goal without alerting everyone. It's extremely rewarding to do so, and the puzzle aspect never gets in the way of it being a stealth game. You can think of it as the VR missions from Metal Gear Solid with a fraction of the trippy meta.
Number 3.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Although this was a big budget AAA release, it had the unfortunate timing of releasing alongside another little action-adventure game, so plenty of gamers chose to play that title instead. In case you made that decision as well, I think it'd be a great time to try this title out. I've been a fan of Reboot Lara Croft, with the PS4 remaster of the first installment being my favorite, but this chapter is very well made too. Shadow the Tomb Raider introduces Rambo-like stealth sequences where you get to use mud to camouflage yourself, and a pretty cool apocalyptic storyline. And while I would have enjoyed more combat sections, since it's so much fun to dispatch enemies, the tombs you raid are great to figure out as well.
Number 2.
Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Yet another Final Fantasy title on the list. And yes, I actually did miss this gem of a title when it first came out on the PSP over a decade ago. I recently played Final Fantasy VII myself for the first time, but to include that PlayStation Classic on this list would be pretty silly. Is there maybe 4 other people left on the planet that haven't played it? But this PSP prequel is amazing as well. It's got insane pre-rendered cutscenes, amazing graphics for a handheld, connects perfectly with the storyline of Final Fantasy VII as well as Advent Children, and has one of the most dynamic battle systems I've seen. It's a full-fledged, brilliant Final Fantasy installment, and deserves to be played at least once.
Number 1.
Darksiders II. I do remember seeing ads and reading about Darksiders II upon its release, but never ventured into buying and playing it. But this year there was a sale on PSN, so I got the PS4 Definitive Edition. If you've never heard of it, it's basically an incredible mash of Zelda and Devil May Cry gameplay, sprinkled with Diablo-like RPG mechanics and even Prince of Persia platforming. The combat system is very deep, and gives you access to a variety of combos and juggles, as you can switch between your scythes and other heavy or light weapons instantly. The world is also rich and detailed, and exploring it with the innovative platforming sections is a joy. Death is an extremely sardonic protagonist and undergoes an epic journey. The dungeons themselves are superbly designed, and each puzzle you overcome is challenging, but never frustrating. You even have a pet crow to give you hints in case you get lost. The loot system is not annoying at all, and it's great to experiment with different armor and weapons as you progress through the extensive campaign. In short, I really can't say enough good things about this title, and if there's only one game you decide to play from this list, let it be this one. What did you think of the list? Which is your favorite game that you've played this year? Let me know in the comments below, subscribe for more awesome content, and see you next time.